Major Max Geron joins us now from the Dallas Police Department, and he wrote a very thoughtful piece about the events that unfolded on Thursday night that was published in the Dallas Morning News. And Major Geron, first of all, how are you doing this evening?
I'm hanging in there. Like most of our officers, it's a day-to-day process of grieving and a lot of hectic scheduling of visitations and funerals ahead.
You were off duty when all of this violence was happening. Then you jumped into your car and headed into the middle of it. Describe for us what you saw.
It was chaos. I saw it first on social media and the Periscope broadcast that was coming from the department, and then when I got there, it was just again a throng of officers and civilians running around. There were officers searching for the gunman at that point, so it was very chaotic.
We were watching all of that from afar here in Canada, but in those early hours, particularly in the first hour, there was so much uncertainty. Were there multiple gunmen? Had they worked together? Where exactly were they? Were they taking off in vehicles? It must have been even more uncertain where you were standing.
It was. So when I got to the command post, I took over a change of command of sorts from a fellow major who then went to the SWAT command post. And so we began to systematically try to account for the officers that we knew had flooded into downtown. We had a set of officers on an operations plan that we knew were there, and we simply didn't know how many other officers were there or where they were. So we needed to account for them.
Social media played such a big role in this. You mentioned in part that was how you found out at first what was going on there. You posted a message on Facebook to let your friends and family know after a couple of hours that you were still okay, but also sadly you saw, like many of us saw, the footage of one of your fellow officers essentially executed on the street, and understandably, but describe that for us. That really shook you.
It really did, and I need to point out that during the course of the investigation, I've since found out that wasn't actually the officer that I thought it was. It was another of the deceased. Out of deference to the family, I won't go into any other details about who that was, but for us, the reality was that it was a friend of ours that we knew, and it was terribly shocking. It was, as I wrote, the stuff of flash memories that you'll be able to tell people where you were when you saw something years from now, and that's the way it is for me. In addition to the heroism that I saw.
It kept you up, that image that night, and I understand as much as I can understand that it had you wondering, that could have been you. What would you have done in that situation?
And that's the question that all police officers, regardless of country or positioning, what if the situations, because the human brain needs to figure out how in that situation you would not have died, and what differently you would have done to do that. And so that was a struggle, and I realized that on Saturday that I continued to struggle with that, and I've found a recommendation from my mentor and thesis advisor to write feelings down. I grabbed the laptop, I sat down and originally penned the document for myself and to help me therapeutically to get through it.
I often wonder when members of the public send messages of condolence to the friends and family of people who've been affected by tragedies, and sadly there are lots of these gun-related tragedies. I wonder, does it have an impact? Well, you wrote it sure had an impact on you when you started reading those messages in your car as you were leaving the scene.
It absolutely did, and I am, as I was moved to tears to choke those back. I cannot say thank you enough to everyone that has reached out regarding what I've written and the trauma that we've all gone through here in Dallas. It means a lot to the officers to know that their citizenry supports them, that our efforts at community policing and cohesive society has not gone unnoticed, and it makes a serious difference.
Besides the violence that gunman wrought that night, he also was trying to divide people on the basis of race. Race has become, a big point of discussion. We heard from the trauma surgeon at the hospital today talking about the complexities of race. How is the Dallas police force doing in the wake of all of this?
Chief Brown has led this department in just an incredible fashion. We arguably, I will brag and I'll say we were perhaps one of the most progressive departments when it comes to community outreach and those efforts of building those in-groups with the community. And so that helps us so much. And I recall reading articles that it was ironic that this attack took place here because of the efforts and the relationship that we have between our police department and our community, and that certainly made a difference, at least in the aftermath, and the well wishes and the thoughtful remarks from our citizens.
Well, and your writings and speaking to you now, both very thoughtful, and thank you very much for speaking with us this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor.